The morning sun painted the downtown streets of San Antonio in shades of gold and amber. Rosa Martinez wiped down the counter of her food truck for the third time, her dark eyes scanning the empty street. At 26, she had already poured 3 years of her life into Bella's Bites, named after her late grandmother who taught her everything about cooking with love. The familiar rumble of the early bus echoed through the morning air, followed by the soft footsteps of commuters heading to their office jobs. Rosa smiled as she spotted her first customer of the day, walking toward her truck. James Mitchell appeared every morning at exactly 7:15, like clockwork. "Good morning, sunshine," Rosa called out, already reaching for a paper cup. "Let me guess. Medium coffee, black, and 1 breakfast burrito with extra salsa." James stopped at her window, a gentle smile spreading across his face. He was tall, with kind brown eyes, and always wore perfectly pressed shirts that probably cost more than Rosa made in a week. But there was something humble about the way he carried himself, something that made Rosa forget about the expensive watch on his wrist. "You know me too well," James replied, his voice carrying a warmth that made Rosa's heart skip just a little. "Though I have to say, your memory for coffee orders is getting scary." Rosa laughed as she poured the steaming coffee into the cup. When someone orders the same thing for 2 months straight, it tends to stick. Besides, you're probably my most reliable customer. 2 months already? James accepted the coffee, their fingers brushing briefly. Time flies when you're having good company for breakfast. Heat crept up Rosa's neck, and she busied herself with preparing his burrito. Flatterer. "I bet you say that to all the food truck owners." "Actually, you're the only food truck owner I know." James leaned against the counter, watching Rosa work with practiced efficiency. "How long have you been doing this?" Rosa cracked eggs onto the hot griddle, the satisfying sizzle filling the air. 3 years this October? Started right after I graduated from culinary school. My grandmother always said the best food comes from the heart, not fancy restaurants. Smart woman. This is definitely better than anything I could get in a fancy restaurant. James took a sip of his coffee and sighed contentedly. "What made you choose this corner? Good foot traffic, friendly neighborhood, and Mrs. Chen." Rosa pointed to an elderly woman, slowly walking toward the truck with a small dog on a leash. "She was my first regular customer. Told me if I could make her smile with my food, I'd make it anywhere." Mrs. Chen approached the window with her usual bright smile. "Good morning, Rosa dear." "Good morning, James. I see you two are chatting again." "Morning, Mrs. Chen," James replied, stepping aside to make room. "How's Buddy doing today?" The elderly woman looked between Rosa and James with twinkling eyes. "Oh, Buddy's fine. But I'm more interested in when you two are going to stop dancing around each other and go on a proper date." Rosa nearly dropped the spatula she was holding. "Mrs. Chen." James chuckled, running a hand through his hair. "Well, that's definitely one way to start the morning." "I'm 83 years old," Mrs. Chen continued, unfazed. "I don't have time for subtlety. Rosa, this nice young man has been coming here every single day for 2 months. James, this lovely girl lights up every time she sees you. Figure it out." Before either of them could respond, Mrs. Chen's usual order was ready. Rosa handed over the small container of oatmeal with fresh berries, her cheeks burning with embarrassment. "Your usual, Mrs. Chen. And please ignore anything I might have said about James being handsome or having nice eyes." "Ever said that?" Rosa protested, but she was smiling despite herself. James raised an eyebrow. "Nice eyes, huh?" "Don't let it go to your head," Rosa replied, wrapping up his breakfast burrito. "I also said the guy who delivers my supplies has nice eyes." Ouch. Comparing me to the delivery guy. That's harsh. Their banter was interrupted by the arrival of a young man jogging toward the truck. Diego Martinez, Rosa's 19-year-old brother, bounded up to the window with the endless energy of a college sophomore. "Morning, sis. Sorry I'm late. Professor Henderson's lecture ran over." Diego noticed James and grinned. "Hey, James. Still working your way through Rosa's entire menu, 1 breakfast burrito at a time?" "Something like that," James replied. "Though at this rate, it might take me a year to try everything." "You've got time," Diego said, tying an apron around his waist. "Rosa's not going anywhere. She's too stubborn to quit even when things get tough." Rosa shot her brother a warning look, but James seemed genuinely interested. "Tough how?" Oh, the usual small business stuff, Rosa said quickly. Nothing we can't handle. But Diego, in typical younger brother fashion, continued talking. The permit fees keep going up. There's talk about some big corporation wanting to buy out all the food trucks in this district. Rosa's been stressed about it for weeks. Diego, Rosa said firmly, I'm sure James doesn't want to hear about our business problems. James set down his coffee cup, his expression suddenly serious. Actually, I'd like to hear about it. If someone's trying to push out local businesses, that's not right. Or something in his voice that made Rosa look at him more closely. For just a moment, he sounded less like a regular customer and more like someone used to solving problems. Someone with authority. It's probably nothing, Rosa said, though her voice lacked conviction. Just rumors about some development company wanting to turn this whole block into high-end retail.
Oh.
Development companies can be tricky, James said carefully. Have you considered reaching out to other business owners in the area? Sometimes there's strength in numbers. Rosa studied his face. There was something different about the way he was talking now, more confident, more knowledgeable. You seem to know a lot about development companies. For someone who works in, she realized she had never actually asked what James did for work. James hesitated for just a moment. Too long. I work in business consulting. You pick up things here and there. Diego was already busy prepping ingredients for the lunch rush, but Rosa kept her attention on James. Business consulting. That sounds important.
Not really.
Pretty boring, actually. James glanced at his watch and Rosa caught sight of it again. She wasn't an expert on watches, but she was pretty sure that one cost more than her monthly rent. I should probably get going, James said, picking up his breakfast. Don't want to be late for those boring business meetings. Of course, Rosa handed him his change, but he waved it off like he always did. Keep it for the tip jar, he said with a smile. Same time tomorrow? I'll be here, Rosa replied, watching as he walked away with that confident stride of his. As James disappeared around the corner, Diego joined his sister at the window. For a business consultant, he sure dresses well. Rosa was thinking the same thing. The perfectly tailored clothes, the expensive watch, the way he seemed to know so much about business development. And there was something about his confidence that suggested he was used to being in charge. Maybe he's just successful at what he does, Rosa said, but doubt was creeping into her voice. Maybe, Diego agreed. Or maybe our morning regular isn't exactly who he says he is. As the morning rush began to pick up, Rosa found herself thinking about James Mitchell. She realized that despite 2 months of daily conversations, she knew almost nothing concrete about his life. No mention of where he lived, what company he worked for, or even what his typical day looked like. But she did know that he made her laugh, that he remembered details about her life, and that he treated everyone from Mrs. Chen to Diego with genuine kindness. Whatever secrets James Mitchell might be keeping, Rosa was beginning to care about him more than was probably wise. The question was whether she was ready to find out who he really was. The lunch rush at Bella's Bites was in full swing when Diego made the discovery that would change everything. He was sitting in the back of the food truck during his break, scrolling through social media on his phone while Rosa handled the steady stream of customers outside. Ow. This is crazy, Diego muttered, staring at his phone screen. He had been reading an article for his business class about young entrepreneurs, when a familiar face caught his attention. There, on the cover of Tech Weekly magazine, was James Mitchell. But this wasn't the casual, friendly James who ordered breakfast burritos every morning. This was James Mitchell, CEO and founder of TechFlow Industries. It's one of the fastest-growing technology companies in Texas. Diego's mouth fell open as he read the article. 29 years old, net worth estimated at over $50 million. Recently featured on the Forbes 30 Under 30 list. The same man who had been chatting with his sister about coffee orders and whether was apparently running a tech empire. Rosa. Diego called out, but his sister was busy taking an order from a construction worker. He stared at the photo again, just to be sure. Same warm brown eyes, same gentle smile. But wearing an expensive suit instead of the casual button-downs James usually wore to the food truck. The article mentioned that James had started his company after dropping out of MIT, building it from nothing into a major player in software development. It also mentioned his reputation for being intensely private, rarely giving interviews or appearing at public events. Diego's mind raced. Why would a millionaire CEO be hanging around their food truck every day? And more importantly, why hadn't he told Rosa who he really was? Diego, can you help me with this order? Rosa called from the front. We're getting swamped out here. Diego quickly put his phone away and joined his sister at the service window. The lunch crowd was bigger than usual, with office workers, construction crews, students all lined up for Rosa's famous tacos and burritos. This is insane, Rosa said, wiping sweat from her forehead. I've never seen it this busy on a Wednesday. They worked together efficiently, Rosa cooking, while Diego handled orders and payments. But Diego couldn't stop thinking about what he had discovered. Should he tell Rosa right away? Or should he wait until they had a moment alone? The decision was made for him when James appeared in line, looking slightly out of breath. He was wearing dark jeans and a blue shirt instead of his usual business attire, and his hair looked like he had been running his hands through it. James. Rosa's face lit up when she saw him. You're early today? No business meetings? Actually, I was hoping to talk to you about something, James said, glancing around at the busy crowd. But I can see you're swamped. Maybe I could help? Help. Rosa raised an eyebrow. You want to help with the lunch rush? Why not? I've got good hands, and I can follow directions. Diego watched this exchange with new eyes. Here was a CEO worth millions of dollars offering to help serve food from a truck. Either James was the most down-to-earth rich person in the world, or he was seriously interested in Rosa. I don't know, Rosa said hesitantly. Do you have any food service experience? James grinned. I worked in a restaurant kitchen during college. I might be a little rusty, but I remember the basics. Another lie, Diego thought, though he kept his expression neutral. According to the article, James had dropped out of college to start his company. When had he had time to work in a restaurant? Okay, Rosa decided. But if you mess up my reputation with the lunch crowd, you're buying everyone's meal, James said. Moving around to the back of the truck, for the next hour, James worked alongside Rosa and Diego, taking orders, wrapping burritos, and chatting with customers. He was surprisingly good at it, moving with confidence and efficiency that suggested he wasn't lying about restaurant experience. Diego found himself studying James carefully. The man was clearly comfortable in charge, naturally taking leadership when the orders got complicated. But he also deferred to Rosa completely, always checking with her before making decisions about the food. You're pretty good at this, Rosa said during a brief lull. Sure, you're just a business consultant? James paused in wiping down the counter. Well, consulting covers a lot of different areas. Like what kind of areas? Diego asked, unable to keep quiet any longer. Oh, strategic planning, operations management, technology integration. James's answers were smooth, but Diego noticed he wasn't really saying anything specific. That sounds like pretty high-level stuff, Rosa observed. Must pay well if you can afford those fancy shirts you wear. James laughed, but it sounded a little forced. I do okay. Nothing too exciting, though. Conversation was interrupted by the arrival of a woman who clearly didn't belong in the casual food truck environment. She was tall and elegant, wearing a perfectly tailored black suit and carrying a leather briefcase. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a severe bun, and she looked around the lunch crowd with obvious distaste. James Mitchell, she said in a crisp, authoritative voice. I've been looking everywhere for you. The effect on James was immediate. His relaxed demeanor vanished, replaced by tension that was visible in every line of his body. Rosa and Diego both noticed the change instantly. Victoria, James said carefully. What are you doing here? Looking for my business partner who missed our 2 o'clock meeting with the investors from Dallas? Victoria replied, her tone sharp with annoyance. Do you have any idea how embarrassing it was to explain that the CEO of TechFlow Industries simply disappeared? The words hit the food truck like a bomb. Rosa's hands stilled on the spatula she was holding. Diego felt his stomach drop. Even the nearby customers seemed to sense the tension. CEO. Rosa's voice was barely above a whisper. James closed his eyes briefly, as if he could somehow make the moment disappear. Rosa, I can explain. TechFlow Industries, Diego said slowly, pulling out his phone. You mean this TechFlow Industries? He held up the magazine article with James's photo on the cover. Rosa stared at the phone screen, then at James, then back at the screen. The friendly, casual man she had been growing to care about was apparently one of the most successful young entrepreneurs in the state. "You're a CEO," she said, her voice flat with shock. "Not a business consultant." "A CEO, yes, but that doesn't change anything between us," James said quickly, stepping closer to the window. "I'm still the same person who comes here every morning. I'm still the same person who helped you with lunch today. The same person?" Rosa's voice rose. "You've been lying to me for 2 months. Every single day, you've been pretending to be someone you're not." Victoria crossed her arms, looking impatient. "James, we really don't have time for this. The investors are waiting, and we have 3 more meetings this afternoon." "Give me 5 minutes," James said without taking his eyes off Rosa. "Don't have 5 minutes. We have a company to run, and you've already wasted half the day playing restaurant." Rosa flinched at the dismissive tone, and James noticed immediately. "Don't talk about this place like that," he said firmly. "And don't talk to Rosa like that." Victoria raised an eyebrow. "Rosa? Is this the food truck girl you've been obsessing over?" "James, she's cute, but you can't keep disrupting business for a lunchtime flirtation." That was the final straw for Rosa. She untied her apron and slammed it down on the counter. "A flirtation?" she repeated, her dark eyes flashing with anger. "Is that what this has been to you? Some kind of amusing break from your real life?" "No," James said desperately. "Rosa, please, it's not like that at all. I never meant for you to find out this way. You never meant for me to find out, period." Rosa shot back. "How long were you planning to keep this up? Were you ever going to tell me the truth, or were you just going to keep slumming it with the poor food truck girl until you got bored? That's not fair, and you know it." "You know me better than that, do I?" Rosa's voice cracked slightly. "Because I thought I knew you, James. I thought you were kind and honest and real. But you're just another rich guy who thinks regular people are entertaining." Diego put a protective hand on his sister's shoulder. He could see how much this was hurting her, and his own anger was building. "Should have told her," Diego said to James. "From the beginning. You should have been honest." James ran his hands through his hair, looking miserable. "I wanted to. God, I wanted to tell her so many times. But I liked being treated like a normal person. I liked that Rosa saw me for who I am, not what I own or how much money I have." "But that's just it," Rosa said quietly. "I don't know who you are. The person I thought I was falling for doesn't exist." The words hung in the air like a confession. Rosa had just admitted she was falling for him, but instead of joy, James felt only devastation. Victoria tapped her watch impatiently. "James, this is all very touching, but we really need to go. You can sort out your personal drama later." "Don't call this drama," James snapped at his business partner. "And stop acting like Rosa doesn't matter." "She doesn't matter to our investors," Victoria replied bluntly. "And right now, that's what matters to our company." Rosa stepped back from the window as if she had been slapped. "Well, there you have it. I don't matter, Rosa. That's not what I think." Victoria doesn't speak for me, but Rosa was already retreating into the back of the truck. "Diego, close up the window. We're done for the day." "Rosa, please," James called out, but she didn't respond. Diego looked at James with a mixture of sympathy and disappointment. "You really messed this up, man. My sister doesn't trust easily, and you just broke whatever trust she had in you." "I know," James said miserably. "I know I messed up, but I have to make this right. Maybe you should have thought of that before you decided to lie to her for 2 months." Diego replied, pulling down the service window. James stood in front of the closed truck, feeling more alone than he had in years. Victoria was right beside him, but she might as well have been on another planet. The only person who had ever made him feel like himself instead of his bank account was now hiding from him, and he had no idea how to fix it. "Come on," Victoria said, tugging at his arm. "You can buy her something nice later. Right now, we have real work to do." James shook off her grip. "This is real work, Victoria. This is my life." But as he walked away from Bella's Bites, following Victoria toward her waiting car, James wondered if he had just lost the most real thing in his life. And for the first time since building his company, he questioned whether any of his success was worth anything if he couldn't share it with someone who truly knew him. Inside the truck, Rosa sat on a crate with her head in her hands, trying not to cry. Diego sat beside her, not knowing what to say. Everything she thought she knew about James Mitchell had just crumbled, and she wasn't sure how to put the pieces back together. 3 weeks passed without a single visit from James Mitchell. Rosa threw herself into her work with fierce determination, arriving at the truck before dawn and staying until well after sunset. She experimented with new recipes, reorganized her entire supply system, and even started a small catering business on the side. But Diego noticed the way his sister's eyes automatically scanned the morning crowd, looking for a familiar face that never appeared. He saw how she paused whenever someone ordered a medium black coffee and breakfast burrito, and he definitely noticed that she hadn't smiled, really smiled, since the day James's true identity was revealed. "You know," Mrs. Chen said one morning, accepting her usual oatmeal with berries, "that nice young man used to make you light up like a Christmas tree. Now you look like someone stole your favorite recipe." Rosa forced a smile as she handed over the container. "I'm fine, Mrs. Chen, just busy with the business." "Busy is good," the elderly woman agreed. "But being stubborn about matters of the heart is just foolish. That boy made a mistake, but his feelings for you were real. These old eyes have seen enough love to know the difference." "It doesn't matter how real his feelings were," Rosa replied, already turning to help the next customer. "He lied to me about everything. How can I trust someone who spent 2 months pretending to be someone else?" Mrs. Chen shook her head sadly and walked away with her dog, leaving Rosa to wrestle with thoughts she had been trying to suppress for weeks. Meanwhile, across town in his glass-walled office, James was having his own struggles. He sat in meeting after meeting, making decisions about budgets and product launches, but his heart wasn't in any of it. Victoria had noticed his distraction and wasn't pleased. "You've been useless for 3 weeks," she said bluntly, dropping into the chair across from his desk. "The development team is waiting for your approval on the new software interface. The marketing department needs direction on the fall campaign. And you're sitting here staring out the window like a lovesick teenager?" James didn't deny it. "I messed up, Victoria. I lost the best thing that ever happened to me because I was too much of a coward, to be honest." "So fix it," Victoria said, her tone softer than usual. "You're a problem solver, James. That's what you do. So, solve this problem. It's not that simple. Rosa doesn't trust me anymore, and I don't blame her." Victoria studied her business partner's face. In all the years they had worked together, she had never seen him this miserable. "What if I told you there might be a way to help?" James looked up, hope flickering in his eyes. "What do you mean?" "I've been doing some research on that development company Rosa mentioned, the one trying to buy out all the food trucks in her district." Victoria pulled out a tablet and swiped through several documents. "Turns out they've been using some pretty questionable tactics to force small businesses to sell." "What kind of tactics?" "Bribing city officials to deny permit renewals, creating fake complaints about health code violations, pressuring landlords to break leases early. The works." James sat up straighter. "That's illegal. It's very illegal. And if someone were to compile evidence and present it to the right authorities, these food truck owners might find themselves in a much better position." "Someone like us?" Victoria smiled for the first time in weeks. "I was thinking more like someone with the resources to hire private investigators and business lawyers. Someone who cares about protecting small businesses from corporate bullies." James was already reaching for his phone. "Get me our legal team. And find the best private investigation firm in the city. I want to know everything about this development company by tomorrow morning." "Already done," Victoria said, sliding a business card across the desk. "I took the liberty of getting started yesterday. Figured it was better to ask for forgiveness than permission." "What?" James stared at his business partner in amazement. "Why are you helping me with this?" "Because you're my friend, and you've been miserable without her. Also, because I may have been a little harsh when I showed up at that food truck." "What?" Victoria's expression grew serious. "I called her business a flirtation, and that wasn't fair. I can see how much she means to you." Over the next week, James threw himself into investigating the development company with the same intensity. He had once applied to building his own business. The private investigators uncovered a pattern of corruption and intimidation that stretched back several years. City officials had been paid to create bureaucratic obstacles for small businesses, while the development company swooped in with offers to help struggling owners by buying their locations. But James was careful to work behind the scenes. He didn't want Rosa to think he was trying to buy her forgiveness or solve her problems with money. Instead, he made sure the evidence found its way to honest city officials, community advocacy groups, and local news outlets. The breakthrough came when Diego discovered what was happening. He had been researching permit requirements for Rosa's potential expansion when he noticed something odd. Several food truck owners who had been forced to sell their businesses were suddenly getting their licenses reinstated. City officials were announcing a crackdown on corruption, and the development company was facing multiple criminal investigations. "Rosa, you need to see this," Diego said, bursting into their shared apartment with a newspaper in his hand. "Look at the headline." Rosa looked up from her laptop, where she had been working on next week's menu. The headline read, "Local Development Company under investigation for bribery and intimidation of small businesses." "This is about those guys who are trying to buy out all the food trucks," Diego continued excitedly. "Says here they were bribing city officials and creating fake health code violations. The whole operation is being shut down." Rosa read the article carefully, her heart racing. According to the report, an anonymous tip had led to a comprehensive investigation that uncovered years of illegal activity. Food truck owners and other small business operators who had been forced to sell were now being offered the chance to return to their original locations. "This is incredible," Rosa breathed. "But how did all this evidence just suddenly appear?" Diego was reading over her shoulder. "Says the tip came with detailed financial records, recorded phone calls, and documented proof of bribery. Someone with serious resources must have hired investigators." Rosa felt a familiar flutter in her chest. She tried to push the thought away, but it persisted. "You don't think?" "James," Diego finished. "I mean, it's possible. He definitely has the money and connections to make something like this happen. But why would he do that? I haven't spoken to him in weeks. Maybe because he loves you and wants to help, even if you won't talk to him." Rosa stared at the newspaper, her mind racing. If James was behind this investigation, it meant he had been working to help her and every other small business owner in the district. Not for recognition or gratitude, but simply because it was the right thing to do. Her phone buzzed with a text message from Mrs. Chen. "Did you see the news, dear? Someone very special must be watching over our little corner of the world. Maybe it's time to stop being so stubborn about matters of the heart." That afternoon, Rosa made a decision. She called Diego over to help her prep for what she hoped would be the most important conversation of her life. "I need you to cover the truck tomorrow morning," she said. "There's something I have to do." The next morning, James sat in his office reviewing quarterly reports when his assistant knocked on the door. "Mr. Mitchell, there's someone here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment, but she says it's important." James looked up, and his heart nearly stopped. Rosa stood in the doorway wearing a simple blue dress instead of her usual food truck attire. She looked nervous but determined, and more beautiful than he remembered. Standing up so quickly that he knocked over his coffee cup, "James." Her voice was soft, but her eyes were steady. "I think we need to talk," he nodded, not trusting himself to speak. She walked into his office. Taking in the floor-to-ceiling windows, the expensive furniture, the awards and newspaper clippings covering one wall. "So this is your real life," she said quietly. "This is my work," James corrected. "My real life was those mornings at your food truck." Rosa turned to face him, and he saw tears in her dark eyes. "Did you do it?" "The investigation into the development company." James hesitated for only a moment. "Yes." "Why?" "Because it was wrong what they were doing to you and all the other small business owners. Because you deserve to follow your dreams without being intimidated by corrupt officials and corporate bullies. And because you thought it would make me forgive you." James shook his head. "No, I did it because I love you. Love means wanting the best for someone even when they don't want you in their life anymore." Rosa was quiet for a long moment, studying his face. "You love me? I've loved you since the second week I started coming to your truck. I loved watching you work, listening to you talk about your dreams, seeing how kind you were to everyone who came to your window. I loved how you made me feel like just James. Not CEO James or millionaire James, just me. But you lied to me about who you were. I lied about what I did for work and how much money I have, James admitted. But I never lied about my feelings for you. Every conversation we had, every moment we shared, that was real. That was me. Rosa walked over to his desk, where she noticed a familiar piece of paper in a silver frame. It was a napkin with Bella's bites printed on it. And in Rosa's handwriting, it said, "Thanks for helping with Lunch Rush. You're welcome back anytime." "You kept this?" she asked, touching the frame gently. "It's from the day I helped you during lunch. You wrote it when I was leaving." James moved to stand beside her. It was the first time someone thanked me for my work rather than my money. Rosa looked up at him, and James saw something soft in her expression for the first time in weeks. "I was so hurt," she said quietly. "Not just because you lied, but because I thought everything between us was fake. I thought you were some rich guy amusing himself by pretending to be normal." "Never," James said firmly. "Those mornings with you were the most real part of my day. The most real part of my life." Rosa nodded slowly. "Mrs. Chen told me that love isn't about being perfect. It's about being willing to grow and change for someone who matters to you. She's a wise woman. She also told me that if I let pride keep me from happiness, I'm a fool." James held his breath, hardly daring to hope. "I don't care that you're rich, James. I care that you lied to me, but I also understand why you did it." Rosa reached up and touched his cheek gently. "I fell in love with you too. The real you. The man who helped during lunch rush, who remembered Mrs. Chen's order, who treated my brother like family. That man is worth forgiving." James closed his eyes and leaned into her touch. "I promise. No more lies. No more hiding who I am or what I do. If you'll give me another chance, I want to share everything with you. The good parts and the complicated parts." Rosa smiled, and it was like sunshine after weeks of rain. "I'd like that. But I have one condition. Anything. You have to come back to the food truck. Not as a CEO slumming it with regular people, but as my boyfriend, who happens to run a tech company. I want Diego to see that you're serious about this, about us." James grinned and pulled her into his arms. "Does this mean I can get my breakfast burrito back?" Rosa laughed and kissed him softly. "Medium coffee, black, and one breakfast burrito with extra salsa. Some things never change. Thank God for that," James murmured against her lips. 6 months later, Bella's Bites had expanded to 3 trucks operating throughout San Antonio. Rosa still worked the original truck most mornings, and James still showed up every day at 7:15. The only difference was that now he usually stayed to help with the breakfast rush before heading to his own office. Mrs. Chen had taken full credit for bringing them together, and neither Rosa nor James had the heart to correct her. After all, she had been right about matters of the heart requiring courage rather than stubbornness. "You know," Rosa said one morning, handing James his coffee, "I still can't believe I'm dating a millionaire CEO." James grinned and stole a quick kiss over the service counter. "And I can't believe I'm dating the most amazing woman in Texas, who just happens to make the best breakfast burritos in the world." Diego rolled his eyes from his position at the grill. "You two are disgustingly cute." "Get a room." "We have a room," Rosa laughed. "It's called James's ridiculously fancy apartment that I'm still afraid to touch anything in." "Our ridiculously fancy apartment," James corrected. "And you can touch anything you want. It's your home too now." The morning rush continued around them, but Rosa and James found themselves in their own little bubble of happiness. Victoria had even started stopping by occasionally, having developed an unexpected fondness for Rosa's breakfast tacos and a grudging respect for her business sense. "Actually," James said, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket, "I was hoping we could make this home arrangement a little more official." Rosa nearly dropped the coffee pot she was holding. The entire line of customers went silent, and Diego stopped flipping eggs on the griddle. "James Mitchell," Rosa whispered, staring at the ring box. "Are you seriously proposing to me through a food truck window?" "Where else would I propose?" James asked, his voice full of love and certainty. "This is where we met. This is where we fell in love. This is where we learned to trust each other." He opened the box to reveal a beautiful but simple diamond ring. "Rosa Martinez, will you marry me?" Will you let me spend the rest of my life buying breakfast burritos from the most incredible woman I've ever known? Rosa's eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling so brightly that every customer in line started smiling too. Yes, she said, reaching through the window to cup his face in her hands. Yes, yes, yes. The crowd erupted in cheers and applause. Mrs. Chen dabbed at her eyes with a tissue, murmuring about how she always knew they were meant to be together. Diego whooped and started flipping eggs in celebration. Even the construction workers and office employees joined in the celebration of two people who had found love in the most ordinary of places. As James slipped the ring onto Rosa's finger, she leaned down and kissed him through the service window, not caring that dozens of people were watching and taking pictures. I love you, she whispered against his lips. I love you too, he replied. From that very first breakfast burrito, 2 years later, their wedding reception was held in the park right across from the corner of Pine and 4th Street, where Bella's Bites still served the best breakfast in San Antonio. Mrs. Chen gave a touching speech about the power of good food to bring people together. Diego walked his sister down the aisle with tears in his eyes. Victoria served as James's best woman, having discovered that sometimes the most important business deals were matters of the heart, and at the center of it all were Rosa and James. Proof that love could bloom anywhere, even between a food truck window and the sidewalk, where two lonely hearts found their way to each other. Rosa's grandmother had been right after all. The best food came from the heart, but the best love came from being brave enough to let someone see who you really were. Flaws and all, sometimes the best love stories started with a simple cup of coffee and the courage to see beyond appearances. Sometimes the person who changed your life was hiding in plain sight, waiting for the right moment to reveal their heart along with their secrets. And sometimes, love really was as simple as showing up every morning, ready to share whatever the day might bring. Rosa and James had learned that lesson well, and they would carry it with them for all the mornings yet to come.